You need to make your decision, whatever that is. We don't advocate one way or the other. And I come to this through many years of working on mining and science and all of that. But the other part that brings me here is my family story. I don't have a story of the land or belonging to the land, but I do have a story of my family, my father in particular, who had to have a job, not by his choice, but his job was to work in a pulp and paper mill. And he did so for decades. And what that resulted in is if he had had information about the effects of that on our family, I think he would have made different choices, because what it resulted in was him dying an early death of a very specific disease that resulted from his exposure, and passing it on to his children, me, in a form of genetics, and then us passing it on. So it's a multi-generational decision you have in your hands. And I share my story not because I'm asking for any kind of interest in that, but just to say that it's really true. The decisions you have in front of you will impact not just you, but generations. And my family's history is what brings me to this work. So stepping back from that, I guess I have two things I'd like to say to you, and I recognize that time is short tonight. And there's a million things we could talk about on the technicalities of mining, the types of ore body, what kind of processing, how fast, where, what they're going to do with the waste, how they would treat it, where the waste would go, what would be the impacts hundreds, if not thousands of years from now. If they put up a dam structure, who's going to maintain that? Who has the liability? The questions are endless. And I'm happy to help you find the answers to those endless questions. But what I'd really like to talk to you about are two things. One is that the economics of the world are changing, and most of the really rich ore bodies are gone. They've been mined out. And what we're seeing now, because the demand for metal is going up, and you've seen that in the prices around the world, and that's not going to change. They will fluctuate, but the demand and the prices are going to remain high. And since most of the really rich, easy to get at ore bodies are gone, the industry is coming to areas that aren't as rich, that aren't as easy to get to. And that's what you have. You have a pretty okay ore body that has some pros and some cons. And some industry, some company, it may not be Imperial, it might be someone else. Mining companies trade and get bought and trade, that's on a regular basis. But someone is going to be interested in that ore body. If not now, someday. And one of the things that you have to realize is that you will have this issue on your tables for a long time to come. And I invite you to use this tremendous resource and interest that you have to figure out where you stand on that in the near term, so that you don't have to do this fight or make this very hard decision over and over and over again. And one of the stories I'd like to share with you is some of the recent work that I've done with the Chilcotin Nation, who have much mining in their territory, but you might have heard of the Prosperity Mine, Fish Lake. That's been a very big, big issue for them. I've had the honor to work with them for the last 4 years, and what they've done is they came together united, the 6 communities in their nation, and through long talk and much discussion, made a decision on how to handle their decision in their territory. And the community that is at the heart of the mine proposal was given the lead and given the decision-making responsibility. And their decision was no, not here, not now, not in this place. It's the wrong place for a mine. But the reason, and they have a long history of rights and title cases, they have a long history of litigation and battles, they have a long history of war and victory. But the reason that they were, that they won, that they made their voices heard was because they came together as a nation, as all the separate communities, and with all of their neighbors around the area, both native and non-native. And that's what made the decision really stick. Now they're back in the thick of it again because the company, Taseko Mines, like I said, once the ore body is good, once it's known, they're not going to give up, and Taseko is bringing it back to the table for another round right now. But I'm confident that the answer will be the same from the community, and I'm also confident that that's going to be their answer, come what may. So I guess what I'd like to leave you with is you have an opportunity now that most, I'd say well over 90% of the communities that I work with do not have. You don't have an environmental assessment process ticking on your doorstep right at this moment. You have time, but you can't waste this time. You have to spend the time talking to each other and making your decisions, getting all the information that was asked for, that you need to make an informed decision, and you have an opportunity to do that right now before someone like the government imposes a 60-day time clock on you in which you have to make that decision. So anything you can do to come together, any way that I can help you or my organization can help you, provide you with some of the information so that you can make a well-informed, well-thought-out decision before you have to, because the time clock is up, is time well spent, and I would encourage you to please come together and do that so that your voices and your vision is what ends up being the future instead of what some outside entity thinks should be your future.
Thank you, Amy.